The message arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. At first, the scientists at NASA's main communications center thought it was a glitch in their systems. But after triple-checking their equipment, they realized the truth. Humanity had just received its first official contact from the Galactic Council. Captain James Walker stood at attention in the Joint Chiefs meeting room, his crisp blue uniform a stark contrast against the dark wood panels behind him. 12 hours had passed since the alien message, and now Earth's military leadership sat before him, their faces grave with the weight of their decision. "Captain Walker," General Thompson spoke, his voice firm. "You understand the importance of this mission." "Yes, sir." Walker kept his voice steady, though his heart raced. Being chosen as humanity's military representative to the Galactic Council wasn't just an honor. It was perhaps the most important job in human history. The general pushed a folder across the table. "Our best weapons, our best tactics, our best technology. You'll present them all to the council next week." He paused, then added, "They're particularly interested in our projectile weapons." Walker opened the folder, scanning the contents. Earth's military leaders had selected an impressive array of firearms and ballistic weapons for his presentation. From standard-issue rifles to the latest railguns, they wanted to show the galaxy that humanity knew how to defend itself. The space elevator ride to the orbital station was smooth, but Walker's stomach churned with anticipation. His small team of 4 security officers stood nearby, each carrying their standard-issue rifles. The aliens had allowed them to bring their weapons, a gesture of trust that Walker appreciated. The transport ship that would take them to the council station waited in orbit. Walker had expected something massive and intimidating. Instead, he found himself looking at an elegant vessel that reminded him of a swan, all curved lines and gleaming white surfaces. "Welcome aboard the Starlight Messenger," a mechanical voice greeted them as they entered. "Please secure yourselves for departure. Journey time to the Galactic Council hub will be approximately 6 hours." During the journey, Walker studied the council briefing materials. The Galactic Council consisted of 23 spacefaring species, each bringing their own technological specialties to the Alliance. Some were masters of faster-than-light travel, others excelled in energy manipulation, and a few had perfected biotechnology beyond human understanding. But none of them used projectile weapons anymore. According to the briefing, they considered such technology primitive and had moved entirely to energy-based weapons centuries ago. Walker smiled to himself. He'd spent enough time in combat to know that sometimes the simplest solutions were the best ones. Still, he wondered how the Council would react to Earth's primitive military technology. The Galactic Council hub came into view through the ship's windows, and Walker's breath caught in his throat. The station was enormous, easily the size of a small moon. It looked like a massive snowflake made of metal and light, with ships of all sizes moving around it in complex patterns. As their ship approached one of the docking bays, Walker noticed something interesting. Despite all the advanced technology on display, he could see basic mechanical doors and physical barriers everywhere. Even the most advanced species in the galaxy still relied on simple physics for some things. The docking procedure was quick and efficient. When the doors opened, Walker and his team were greeted by a tall, elegant alien with silvery skin and flowing robes. "Captain Walker," the alien spoke in perfect English. "I am First Greeter Blue. Welcome to the hub." The alien's head tilted slightly. "I notice you and your team carry your weapons. The Council is curious about your species' attachment to physical projectile launchers." Walker detected a hint of amusement in the alien's voice. "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways," he replied diplomatically. "Perhaps," Blue said, though their tone suggested they doubted it. "The Council will receive you in 1 standard hour. Until then, please allow me to show you to your quarters." As they followed Blue through the station's gleaming corridors, Walker couldn't help but notice the looks their rifles received from passing aliens. Some seemed amused, others puzzled, and a few appeared almost concerned. Walker had a feeling these reactions would change soon enough. After all, Humanity hadn't survived this long using inferior technology. The aliens might laugh at human guns now, but Walker suspected they had a lot to learn about why Earth's military still relied on them. He just hoped they wouldn't have to learn that lesson the hard way. The council chamber was a massive circular room with rising tiers of seats, each filled with representatives from different alien species. Captain Walker stood at the center, his team's rifles drawing curious glances from the assembled aliens. The weapons demonstration area had been set up behind him, complete with various targets and safety barriers. Admiral Redscale, the council's security chief, sat in the front row. His scaled skin shimmered with a metallic gleam under the chamber's lights, and his expression showed clear doubt. Next to him, Council President Stone, a being that looked like living crystal, raised a hand for silence. Captain Walker, President Stone's voice echoed through the chamber. You may begin your presentation of Earth's military capabilities. Walker nodded and stepped forward. Honorable council members, I'll start with our standard infantry weapon, the M4 combat rifle. He lifted the weapon, causing several council members to lean forward in their seats. It uses chemical propellant to launch metal projectiles at high velocity. A laugh echoed through the chamber. Admiral Redscale stood up, his scales rippling with amusement. Chemical propellant, metal projectiles. Captain, surely you jest. We abandoned such primitive technology thousands of years ago. Walker kept his cool. With respect, Admiral, sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective. Would you like a demonstration? By all means, Redscale waved his hand dismissively. Show us these ancient weapons of yours. Walker turned to the demonstration area. Standard targets had been set up at various distances. He shouldered his rifle and fired 3 quick shots. The sharp cracks echoed through the chamber, making several council members jump. The targets showed perfect center hits. Impressive accuracy, President Stone noted, but hardly revolutionary. Admiral, perhaps you could show Captain Walker our standard weaponry. Redscale stepped down to the demonstration floor, carrying what looked like a sleek silver tube. This, Captain, is a Mark 7 plasma pulse rifle. Observe. He aimed at a target and fired. A brilliant beam of energy shot out, completely vaporizing the target. Murmurs of approval filled the chamber. Walker noticed that several council members were looking at his rifle with something close to pity. An impressive weapon, Walker acknowledged. But may I ask, Admiral, how does it perform when power is limited? Power. Redscale seemed confused. The power cells last for months of continuous use. And if they fail? They don't fail, Redscale stated firmly. Our technology is beyond such concerns. Walker nodded thoughtfully. And your energy shields? I notice most council species rely heavily on them for defense. Of course. Another council member spoke up, a floating beam made of swirling gas. Our shield technology is impenetrable to energy weapons. No plasma blast can penetrate a properly maintained shield. Energy shields stopping energy weapons, Walker mused. Logical, but what about physical objects? Redscale waved dismissively. Why waste time with primitive projectiles when we have perfected energy weapons? Captain, while we appreciate Earth's interest in joining the Council, perhaps you should focus on developing more advanced technology. Walker was about to respond when alarms suddenly blared throughout the chamber. A holographic screen appeared in the center of the room, showing multiple ships approaching the station. Pirates. Redscale shouted, his scales darkening with anger. They wouldn't dare. The chamber erupted in chaos. Council members rose from their seats, some calling for security, others demanding immediate evacuation. President Stone's crystalline form glowed with concern. Admiral, the president's voice cut through the noise. Deploy security forces immediately. Captain Walker, please return to your ship. We'll continue this presentation when the situation is resolved. Walker watched as Redscale barked orders into a communication device. Security forces armed with plasma weapons began filing into the chamber. But something caught Walker's attention. The pirate ships on the holographic display were surrounded by a familiar type of energy field. "Admiral," Walker called out, "those shields around the pirate ships, they're similar to Council standard defensive shields, aren't they?" Red Scale paused, looking at the display. "Yes, they appear to be using stolen shield technology. But our weapons will." A massive explosion rocked the station, cutting off Red Scale's words. The lights flickered, and several of the plasma weapons carried by security forces suddenly went dark. Walker checked his rifle, a purely mechanical weapon that needed no power to function. He had a feeling the Council was about to learn exactly why humans still used primitive technology. "Admiral," he said calmly, "I believe our presentation isn't over yet." Another explosion rocked the Council chamber, stronger than the first. The elegant lights flickered and died, leaving only emergency lighting casting red shadows across worried alien faces. Captain Walker watched as Admiral Red Scale's plasma rifle sputtered and went dark, along with every other energy weapon in the room. "They've hit the main power core," someone shouted. "Shields are failing." Through the chamber's massive windows, Walker could see the pirate ships approaching. They were ugly, brutal-looking vessels covered in stolen Council shield technology. Their energy weapons blazed, hammering the station's weakened defenses. Impossible. Red Scale's scales had turned a pale gray color. "Our security systems are the best in the galaxy. How did they bypass everything?" "Because you rely too heavily on power-dependent technology," Walker said, checking his rifle's magazine. His security team did the same, their movements quick and practiced. Sometimes the old ways are more reliable. The chamber's doors burst open. A group of pirates stormed in, their armor gleaming under the emergency lights. Their leader, a massive alien with jet-black scales, stepped forward. Unlike the Council forces, the pirates carried crude-looking weapons alongside their energy guns. "Council members," the pirate leader's voice boomed across the chamber, "I am Captain Black. Your station is now under our control. Your energy shields are down, your weapons are useless, and your communications are blocked." Walker noticed something interesting. The pirates' personal shields were still functioning. They must have brought their own power sources, independent of the station's grid. President Stone stood tall, his crystalline form catching the red emergency lights. "What do you want, pirate?" "Everything," Black laughed. "Your technology, your data cores, and you, as our prisoners. The Council's arrogance ends today." Walker caught Red Scale's eye and made a subtle hand gesture. The Admiral might not like human weapons, but right now, Walker's team had the only working guns in the room. "Hands up, all of you," Black ordered, pointing his backup projectile weapon at President Stone. "Even if your guards had working weapons, our shields would stop any energy blast." "True," Walker spoke up, stepping forward. "Energy shields are great against energy weapons." He raised his rifle. "But we don't use energy weapons." Black turned toward him, noticing the human weapons for the first time. His eyes widened slightly. "Projectile weapons. Here. In the Council chamber." He laughed, but Walker noticed uncertainty in his voice. "Those toys won't penetrate our shields." "Want to bet?" Walker squeezed the trigger. The crack of the rifle was deafening in the enclosed space. Black's shield flickered bright blue as the bullet passed straight through it, striking his weapon and knocking it from his hand. The pirate captain stared in shock at his smoking pistol on the floor. "Impossible," he snarled. "Kill them." The chamber erupted in chaos. Pirates fired their backup weapons wildly, but Walker's team had already taken cover. The sounds of gunfire echoed off the walls as bullets defeated the impenetrable shields of the pirates. Walker rolled behind a Council seat, taking careful aim. "Bullets don't care about your energy shields," he called out. "They're just chunks of metal moving really fast." Red Scale had taken cover nearby. He watched in amazement as the human weapons tore through the pirates' defenses. "The shields, they don't stop physical objects." "Never tested it?" Walker asked, dropping another pirate with a well-placed shot. Two focused on energy weapons to consider alternatives. More pirates poured through the doors, but now they looked uncertain. Their greatest advantage, their stolen shield technology, was useless against these primitive human weapons. "Fall back," Black shouted, clutching his wounded hand. "Fall back and regroup." The pirates retreated, leaving behind several of their wounded. Walker's team maintained their positions, covering the doors with their rifles. "Captain Walker," President Stone's voice was steady despite the chaos. "It seems we may have underestimated the value of your technology." Red Scale nodded slowly, his scales returning to their normal color. "Indeed, but this isn't over. More pirates are on the station, and they'll be back with greater numbers." Walker checked his ammunition. "Then we better come up with a plan. And Admiral," he handed Red Scale his backup pistol, "you might want to learn how to use one of these primitive weapons." The Admiral took the pistol carefully, a new respect in his eyes. Perhaps you could teach me quickly." "Gladly," Walker replied, "because right now, Earth's primitive weapons might be the only thing standing between the Council and disaster." Captain Walker moved quickly through the Council chamber, organizing the remaining security forces. Emergency lights still cast their red glow across worried faces as he distributed spare magazines to his team. Admiral Red Scale stood nearby, awkwardly holding the human pistol but watching every movement with keen interest. "The weapon feels primitive," Red Scale admitted, testing its weight. "But I saw what it did to those shields. How did we miss this weakness?" "Simple," Walker replied, showing him how to hold the pistol properly. "Your civilization advanced so quickly to energy weapons that you forgot to test your defenses against basic physics. Sometimes the old ways still work best." A holographic display flickered to life in the center of the chamber, powered by emergency batteries. It showed dozens of pirate forces spreading through the station's levels. "They're moving toward the data cores," President Stone observed, his crystalline form dimmed with concern. "All our civilization's knowledge is stored there." Walker studied the display, noting the pirates' movement patterns. 20 years of military experience told him they were making a critical mistake. They were too spread out. "Admiral," Walker turned to Red Scale, "do your security forces have any non-powered weapons? Anything mechanical? Batons, perhaps?" The Admiral's scales rippled with sudden understanding. "Yes, the ceremonial guard carries metal staffs. We thought them decorative, but—" "Get them," Walker ordered. "And any other physical weapons you can find. President Stone, we'll need your authority to coordinate with all Council species present on the station." The next 30 minutes were a blur of activity. Council members who had initially looked down on human technology now listened intently as Walker explained basic tactical concepts that their civilizations had forgotten centuries ago. Remember, Walker demonstrated to a group of security officers now armed with ceremonial weapons and human firearms. Their shields stop energy, not matter. Use that against them. Throw things if you have to. Even simple objects become weapons at high speed. Red Scale had proved a quick study with the pistol. "The simplicity is elegant," he admitted, hitting a practice target. "No power cells to fail. No complex electronics to malfunction." A distant explosion rocked the station. The pirates were getting closer to the data cores. "Time to move," Walker announced. He turned to his small but now well-armed force. Various alien species stood ready, holding a mix of human weapons and their own mechanical tools. "They expect us to be helpless without power. Let's prove them wrong." They moved through the darkened corridors in groups, just as Walker had taught them. The first group of pirates they encountered learned the hard way that their shields were useless against physical attacks. The sight of their invincible energy barriers failing against simple metal projectiles spread panic through their ranks. "Push forward," Walker commanded. "Don't let them regroup." The station's security forces, armed with their rediscovered primitive weapons, drove into the pirate ranks. Council species that hadn't engaged in physical combat for generations remembered ancient warrior instincts. A tall, tree-like alien used its ceremonial staff with devastating effect. A floating gas being discovered it could launch small objects at incredible speeds through its natural propulsion. "This is remarkable," Red Scale said between exchanges of fire. "We've relied so heavily on energy weapons that we forgot the basics of combat." Walker nodded, reloading his rifle. "Technology should enhance your capabilities, not replace them. Earth learned that lesson long ago." The pirates' confusion turned to fear as more of their forces encountered the unexpected resistance. Their communications, picked up on emergency channels, became increasingly panicked. "The shields aren't working. They're using solid projectiles. Fall back! Fall back!" Captain Black's voice cut through the chatter. "Hold your positions, you cowards. They're using primitive weapons. We can't lose tow." His transmission cut off as Walker's team breached another section. By the time they reached the data core section, the pirates were in full retreat. Their careful plans had fallen apart in the face of supposedly obsolete technology and tactics they had never trained to face. President Stone's voice came through their emergency communicators. "Captain Walker, the pirates are falling back to their ships, but they still control our main power systems." "Good," Walker replied, checking his ammunition. "Because now we're not just defending. We're taking back the station." He turned to his mixed force of humans and aliens, ready to show them what else these primitive weapons can do. The answer came in the form of determined nods from beings across the galaxy, all now united in their newfound respect for the basics of warfare. The next phase of the battle was about to begin, and this time they had the advantage of surprise. The path to the station's main power core was heavily guarded. Walker, Red Scale, and their combined force of humans and aliens crouched behind a barricade, studying the pirate positions ahead. The emergency lighting cast strange shadows on the walls, making the corridor seem longer than it was. 20 guards at least, Red Scale whispered, his scales now a dark combat color. All with shields and backup projectile weapons. They've learned from their mistakes. Walker nodded, noticing how the pirates had positioned themselves. They're adapting, but they're still amateurs with physical weapons. He turned to the mixed species team behind him. "Time to show them what else we can do with primitive technology." A tall plant-like alien named Root raised one of its branches. "Captain, my species can release a thick cloud of spores. They're harmless, but they're physical particles that will pass right through their shields." Walker finished, a plan forming. "Perfect. Admiral, remember that trick I showed you?" Red Scale checked his pistol, now handling it like a veteran. Ricochet shots. Bullets bouncing off walls. Their shields only face forward. Walker grinned. It was amazing how quickly the aliens had picked up human combat techniques. He reached into his pack and pulled out several small metal objects. "These are old-fashioned, but effective," he explained. "Grenades, not energy explosives, just simple fragmentation devices. Physical shrapnel their shields can't stop." The tree alien released its spore cloud, which drifted toward the pirates. Their shields lit up uselessly as the particles passed through, reducing visibility. The pirates started shouting in confusion. "Now," Walker commanded. The attack came from multiple angles. Walker's team fired their rifles, the bullets bouncing off walls to hit pirates from behind. Red Scale led a group using their ceremonial weapons in close combat. The floating gas being propelled small objects at incredible speeds through gaps in the pirates' formation. "Their shields are useless," a pirate screamed. "They're everywhere." Walker rolled forward, tossing a grenade. The explosion sent shrapnel flying through energy shields that had never been designed to stop physical fragments. The pirates' formation broke completely. "Push forward," Red Scale ordered, his voice full of newfound confidence. "Don't let them regroup." The combined force moved like a well-oiled machine. Species that had relied solely on energy weapons for centuries now demonstrated remarkable skill with physical combat. A crystalline being used its natural form to refract emergency lighting, blinding pirates before precise shots took them down. They reached the power core chamber to find Captain Black himself commanding the remaining pirates. His black scales were dull with stress as he watched his forces crumble before this unexpected assault. Impossible, Black snarled, firing wildly with a stolen plasma weapon that barely worked on emergency power. You're using sticks and stones against advanced technology. No, Walker replied calmly. We're using the right tools for the right job. He turned to his team. Demonstrate. What followed was a perfect display of combined arms tactics. Root released another spore cloud. The gas beam accelerated small metal objects through it. Human rifles provided precise covering fire, while alien warriors engaged in close combat. Red Scale proved his marksmanship by shooting Black's weapon right out of his hands. Surrender, Walker commanded, his rifle trained on Black. Your shields don't work against us. Your energy weapons are barely functioning, and your forces are scattered. Black looked around at his defeated troops, then at the confident faces of Council species wielding primitive weapons with deadly efficiency. His shoulders slumped. I surrender. The power core was quickly secured. Council technicians, protected by the mixed security force, began restoring the station's systems. As lights flickered back on throughout the station, President Stone's voice came through now-functioning communicators. Captain Walker. The president's tone was filled with respect. The station is secure. The remaining pirates are surrendering station-wide. A pause. It seems we owe humanity an apology, and our thanks. Red Scale walked up to Walker, holding his pistol with newfound respect. We forgot something important in our rush to advance technology, didn't we? Walker nodded. You forgot that new isn't always better. Sometimes the old ways. He caught movement in his peripheral vision and smoothly drew his sidearm, taking down a hidden pirate trying to flee. Sometimes the old ways work just fine. The Admiral's scales rippled with amusement. Indeed, I believe the Council will have many questions about Earth's primitive military tactics. Perhaps it's time we remembered what we forgot. Walker looked at their mixed force, humans and aliens together, having won through a combination of old and new. I think we have a lot to teach each other. The station hummed as power returned fully, but now it hummed with something else too. A new respect for humanity's approach to warfare, and the recognition that true advancement doesn't mean abandoning what works. The council chamber looked very different from when Walker had first entered it. Emergency repair crews worked on damaged sections while security teams, now carrying a mix of energy and physical weapons, guarded the entrances. The chamber's grand windows showed pirate ships being secured by council vessels, their stolen shield technology no longer seeming so impressive. Captain Walker stood at the center of the chamber once again, but this time there were no mocking smiles or dismissive glances. Every council member watched him with undivided attention, many taking notes as he continued his weapons presentation from where it had been interrupted. As we've seen, Walker explained, laying out various human weapons on the demonstration table, true security comes from being prepared for all situations. Energy weapons are powerful, but simple physical weapons have their place. Admiral Red Scale, his scales now a respectful gold color, stepped forward. Indeed, our reliance on a single type of technology nearly proved our undoing. He picked up one of the human pistols with practiced ease. These weapons, which we dismissed as primitive, saved the Council today. President Stone's crystalline form glowed brightly. Captain Walker, your actions have proven not just the worth of your weapons, but the value of maintaining diverse defensive capabilities. The Council has much to learn from Earth. Walker nodded, but raised his hand. With respect, Mr. President, I believe we all have something to learn from this. Earth's technology isn't better than yours. It's different. Different tools for different jobs. The chamber filled with murmurs of agreement. Walker noticed several council members examining their ceremonial weapons with new interest, seeing them now as more than just decorative items. A tall, ethereal being floated down from the upper tiers. I propose we establish a joint military training program. Our species have forgotten much about physical combat and tactical thinking. Earth could help us remember. And in return, Red Scale added, we can help Earth understand our energy-based technologies, a true exchange of knowledge. Walker smiled. This was going better than he'd expected. When he'd first arrived with his primitive weapons, he'd hoped merely to gain Earth admission to the Council. Now they were talking about full military cooperation. The chamber's main doors opened, and a group of technicians entered, led by the gas being who had fought alongside Walker. They carried several modified weapons, combinations of human firearms and alien technology. Captain, the gas being's voice resonated through its translator. We've been experimenting. Watch this. It lifted one of the modified rifles. The weapon fired a normal bullet, but surrounded by a focused energy field. Physical impact enhanced by our power systems, the best of both worlds. Walker examined the new weapon with interest. Impressive. You've taken the reliability of physical ammunition and added the power of energy weapons. This is exactly the kind of innovation we need, President Stone declared, not abandoning either technology, but combining them intelligently. The president turned to address the full council. I call for an immediate vote, all in favor of establishing a joint Human Council Defense Initiative. The chamber erupted in unanimous agreement. Walker watched as species that had laughed at his weapons just days ago now voted enthusiastically to learn more about Earth's military technology and tactics. Red Scale approached Walker as the voting concluded. You know, Captain, I still have your pistol. He patted the human weapon at his hip. I've grown quite attached to it. Keep it, Walker replied. Consider it the first exchange in our new partnership. The Admiral's scales rippled with pleasure. Speaking of partnerships, the Council's security force will need advisors who understand both physical and energy-based combat. Would you be interested in a more permanent position? Before Walker could respond, President Stone called for attention. There is one more matter to address. Captain Walker, step forward. Walker approached the president's podium, conscious of every eye in the chamber watching him. In light of recent events, President Stone announced Earth's application for council membership will be expedited. Moreover, we wish to establish a new council security division, focusing on combined arms training and technology integration. The president's crystalline form sparkled. Captain Walker, we would be honored if you would lead this initiative. Walker looked around the chamber, at the aliens who had become allies, at the weapons that represented both past and future, at the possibility of humanity helping guide the galaxy toward a more balanced approach to warfare. The honor, he replied, would be mine. 3 months after the pirate attack, the Galactic Council hub looked very different. Walker walked through its corridors, now serving as the director of the Combined Defense Initiative. Training areas that once held only energy weapon ranges now featured physical combat zones, shooting galleries, and mixed technology testing facilities. He paused to watch a training session through reinforced windows. Admiral Red Scale, who had become one of the program's most enthusiastic instructors, was teaching a group of alien security officers how to handle human firearms. His scales gleamed with pride as his students hit target after target. Excellent shooting. Red Scale called out to a crystalline being who had just scored a perfect grouping. Remember, even if your energy weapons fail, a well-maintained physical weapon will never let you down. Walker smiled and continued his walk to the council chamber. The chamber itself had been redesigned, now featuring both energy shields and physical barriers. The council had learned its lesson about relying too heavily on a single type of defense. Inside, President Stone was addressing a group of new Earth representatives. Earth's fast-tracked council membership had opened the floodgates for human-alien cooperation. The integration of Earth's military knowledge with our advanced technology has already produced remarkable results, Stone was saying. Piracy in Council space has dropped by 70% since we implemented the combined defense protocols. Walker took his seat at the security chief's platform, now modified to accommodate both human and alien technology. A holographic display showed the status of the hub's new defensive systems, a perfect blend of physical and energy-based protection. Director Walker, a gas-being council member, floated over. The new hybrid weapons have passed all field tests. Every council species is requesting them for their defense forces. The hybrid weapons had been a breakthrough, combining the reliability of physical projectiles with the power of alien energy technology. But more importantly, they represented a new way of thinking about defense and combat. A commotion at the chamber entrance drew everyone's attention. Captain Black, the former pirate leader, was being led in under guard. His scales were dull, but his eyes were alert as he surveyed the changed chamber. "You requested to speak to the council," President Stone said, his crystalline form dimming slightly. "Speak." Black straightened up. "I come with a warning and a request. Other pirate groups are planning attacks, thinking they can replicate our strategy." He paused, looking at Walker. "They don't know about the changes you've made. They don't understand that the old tricks won't work anymore." Walker stepped down to face the former pirate. "And your request?" "Let me help," Black said simply. "I know how pirates think. I know their weaknesses. Let me help protect what you've built here." The chamber erupted in discussion, but Walker raised his hand for silence. "You attacked this station because you thought advanced technology made us weak. What do you think now?" Black's eyes moved from the new defensive systems to the training areas visible through the windows, where beings from across the galaxy were learning to combine old and new ways of fighting. "I think," he said slowly, "that I want to be on the winning side." President Stone conferred briefly with other council members before speaking. "Your knowledge could be valuable. Under strict supervision, you may assist Director Walker's training program." As Black was led away, Red Scale entered the chamber, holding something that made Walker smile. A traditional alien energy staff, modified to house a simple physical backup weapon. "Our latest design," Red Scale announced proudly. "Council technology with human practicality. The recruits love it." Walker picked up the weapon, feeling the perfect balance between old and new. "This is what we needed all along. Not to abandon our advances, but to remember our foundations." President Stone's voice carried across the chamber. "And to think, it all started with us laughing at human guns." "No," Walker corrected kindly, "it started with us being willing to learn from each other. The guns just got your attention." The chamber filled with laughter, not mocking this time, but warm and genuine. Through the grand windows, Walker could see Earth ships docking alongside alien vessels, their crews carrying weapons both ancient and advanced. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not by abandoning its past, but by helping the galaxy remember why some old ways were worth keeping. As Walker watched a new group of recruits enter the training area, he knew that the council would never again make the mistake of dismissing something just because it seemed primitive. Sometimes the simplest solutions were the best ones, and sometimes moving forward meant remembering what you left behind. The galaxy had laughed at human guns, but now it was learning to respect the wisdom behind them.